The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Madame la Présidente, and merci beaucoup to my honourable colleague from St. John's East for his intervention. It's with great pleasure that I rise today to talk about trade and Bill C-79, which will bring in ratification of the CPTPP. Je suis très fier d'être ici aujourd'hui.
Very proud to be here today, and I'm very proud to talk about this subject, Bill C-79.
Trade, and I like to talk about it as real progress for middle-class Canadians. It's a theme that our government has mentioned many times, and CPTPP, much like CETA, is real progress for middle-class Canadians. I think about my riding of Vaughan Woodbridge and the folks back there. I think about the Canadian Pacific Intermodal Facility, which is the busiest intermodal facility in all of Canada, and all the jobs connected to that facility. All the jobs that are connected from out west, bringing all the products to Vaughan, Ontario, and to my riding of Vaughan Woodbridge. I think about CN's McMillan Yard, which is located in the city of Vaughan, the largest such facility that CN Rail has in Canada. I think about the FedEx Distribution Centre located in my riding, the UPS Distribution Centre located in the city of Vaughan. I think about the Costco facility located in my riding. And I think about all those middle-class Canadians that go to work every day and are dependent on what are called trade-dependent jobs. And it's important, Madam Speaker, that we think about that. We contextualize, what does CPTPP mean? CPTPP mean? It means jobs for middle-class Canadians. I myself grew up before moving to Ontario in a place called Prince Rupert, British Columbia. And it sometimes astounds me that the member from Skeena-Balkley Valley or the entire NDP caucus would be against trade. Increased trade volumes, the first benefit is to those folks doing those long-shoring jobs, whether it's in the Port of Prince Rupert or the Port of Vancouver or the Port of Halifax or the Port of Montreal. And those are great jobs, jobs that pay well over $100,000 a year with great benefits, unionized middle-class jobs. And it astounds me that the NDP, in their interventions today, would talk about all the CPTPP and all trade is bad for the economy, lost jobs. No, Canada is wealthy because of trade. Our linkages to the outside world are dependent on trade and investment flows. I look at CETA, where we've ratified it in the House, and some of the European countries are following along, slowly but incrementally. Trade through the Port of Montreal, up 20%, reports the Globe and Mail this week. Trade volumes, if you look at international merchandise trade statistics, which came out for July about a week ago from StatsCan, record levels, led by energy and non-energy exports. Trade to Italy and France and the Netherlands up, imports and exports. What does that imply? What does that mean? It implies jobs for middle-class Canadians. And I always take it back for that. Because I know when I go back to my riding, those individuals that I speak to, they want to have a good future for them. They want to have a good future for their children. And Madame Speaker, c'était très important pour moi.
That's very important for me. The growth of the economy for Canada.
Class jobs. When I visited the Home Depot Distribution Centre, I was on a tour, see all those lovely folks working very hard, bringing in products from all over the world. When I did the tour of the CP facility, intermodal facility with CP's management, seeing that, how it is. I personally worked at a grain elevator growing up. The ships would come in, we would bring in that beautiful Western Canadian barley and wheat and canola, be shipped out of Port of Prince Rupert, going to export markets. That's what we're talking about. And those are the issues I'm proud to be fighting for here in the House of Commons. And it's great to be back after the summer. Madam Speaker, the first question I ask myself, much like CETA, CETA is a progressive trade deal, is how does CPTPP align with Canada's progressive trade agenda? If I may say so, does it align with our labour rights, environmental regulations? I think the answer is yes. Does it align with social responsibility? I think the answer is yes. Does it grow our $2 trillion economy that many Canadians contribute to every day in, day out? The answer is yes. Now, we do know with trade, sometimes there's winners and sometimes there's losers. We need to make sure that the winners do well, and we need to make sure anybody impacted also receives a little help. But I would argue trade rises boats, and when done properly, the benefits are enormous. We see that with CETA these days. Over 9,000 products came in tariff-free now to Canada, and vice versa, benefits from procurement. But there's another angle that I think needs to be added in. It's the entrepreneurial spirit that Canadians have from coast to coast to coast. So if you're an SME, in my city of Vaughan, there are over 13,000 small and medium enterprises. Those companies compete domestically and internationally, and CPTPP opens up a new exciting market, even more so. Japan, Australia, and a bunch of other countries listed. I think there's 8 or 9 more. And you look about where our economy is today and how we're making real progress for middle-class Canadians, whether it's the Canada Child Benefits or the tax cut for 9 million Canadians. Holistically, if you think about it, trade fits in the picture. And we need to keep pushing that needle forward, because in today's world where sometimes doors are being closed rather than opened, where countries maybe are being myopic and not looking at the big picture, Canada needs to remain at the forefront of pushing for liberalized trade markets, liberalized investment agenda to allow people to invest. You know, I look at our immigration policy with regard to high-skilled workers. Over 10,000 workers came into Canada because our government brought in a change that allows the best and the brightest to come here sometimes within 2 weeks. That's why when we signed CPTPP, it's so important. It's so imperative that we connect with the rest of the world. So I look at the progressivity of this trade deal on corporate social responsibility, on cultural identity and diversity, environmental protection, gender equality, Indigenous rights, labor rights, inclusive trade, sustainable development, and preserving our right to regulate in the public interest. And I ask myself, does it do that? And the answer is yes. I ask myself when I think about the auto sector. And to me in Ontario, the auto sector is very important. In the city of Vaughan, we're blessed to have the headquarters of Martin Rea. In York Region, we have the headquarters of Magna, which is the largest, if not the largest, one of the top 2 auto parts providers in the entire world, with over 50 plants in Ontario, operations in Europe and Asia and the United States and Mexico. This is a trade deal that opens up markets for us. This is a trade deal that allows companies such as Martin Rea and Magna and so forth to compete, to provide those services to Tier 1 OEMs, as you like to call it. And if we look at the revised CPTPP versus the new one, our government sat down at the negotiating table and negotiated a better agreement. If I may just read this quick comment. To provide market access for Canadian auto exports to Japan, Canada reached an agreement on auto standards with Japan that brings into effect important commitments on automotive standards and regulations that Japan made to the United States and Canada in the original TPP, but which Canada lost when the United States withdrew from the TPP. Canada also secured a most favored nation clause on auto standards and a side agreement with Japan to capture further liberalization that Japan would make in this area. The CPTPP would ensure that the treatment of Canadian autos are not disadvantaged compared to autos of other countries. Moreover, Canada concluded an auto rules of origin side letter with Malaysia to allow the Canadian auto sector to benefit preferential tariff treatment. Our negotiators, who are the best in the world, negotiated a better agreement that, I hate to tell the opposition, was better than the one they negotiated. And it's the truth. Now, I always say, like, real progress from Canada's middle class, but let's remove the word middle class. How about just real progress for Canada's farmers or Canada's fishermen? We've seen on the East Coast lobster exports to Europe explode. Recently on a family vacation to Boston, I had a conversation with someone who would love, fisher folks would love to have access to Europe like our Canadian fisher folks do, excuse me. I grew up in Prince Rupert, British Columbia, and there's canneries and so forth, and I clean fish to pay for my university. And we have increased access for those fisher folks and those loggers and those farmers, those Western Canadian farmers, those either grain or beef or whichever meat you want to define. And we need to support them, and that's what CPTPP does. And they want us there, and they want this agreement signed. So I look forward, Madame Speaker, merci beaucoup, to swift, vite, rapidement ratification of this agreement. C'est bon pour notre économie.
It's good for our economy, for the middle class. It's good for economic growth. And for me, It's good for the future of my children.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the time.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires, l'honorable député.